So you've seen part one, you've unboxed your Mavic and you now understand the basics. How do we get it airborne? This video will show you what to do next. Hi, I'm Ash from DroningON. Now in part one of this, we showed you how to unbox the Mavic and also what each component in that combo pack does. We also introduced the drone and the transmitter and gave you a bit of background around how it all works. So in this part two video, we'll be showing you what to do next, how to get the drone ready for flight, installing the app and updating the firmware. By the end of this video, you should be ready to fly. Comment below with your thoughts, give this video a thumbs up, and as always, share the video. So you're probably desperate to fly your DJI Mavic as soon as it arrives, but we're going to take you through a series of setup steps that you must do first. So when your Mavic arrives, it's kind of in a transport mode, and we're going to show you how to set it up and remove the various elements that are attached to the Mavic to get it ready for flight. Now, first of all, the Mavic will come probably with a battery fitted on top. So we're going to remove that first. Whenever you remove the batteries, always open the arms first, and then you can access the little press buttons on either side. Press on both of those and lift up, and the battery comes out. We're going to put that to one side just for now. So remove the battery first and then shut the arms again just for now. Then we need to remove the various stickers that are all over the Mavic and talk you through how to use it, but we don't want those on there during flight. So we've got two stickers here that tell you about the arms. Now all these are doing is reminding you the order in which to open the arms. Always open the front arms first. So if you open them in the wrong order, you won't be able to open the rear ones anyway. So we're going to take these little stickers off. Now, my advice, there are lots more little stickers like this. I always keep them, and this is personal preference, and I always stick them to a little bit of the original packaging. The reason is, if I ever sell this Mavic, I think it's really nice when you buy a product and it's got the original stickers that came on it. Not to pretend that it's new, but just simply to help whoever the new owner is in understanding what these stickers are trying to do. These are instructional, so they are useful, so just keep them to one side. The other stickers on the Mavic are on the front of the obstacle avoidance, some tiny little clear plastic stickers just protecting those tiny little cameras. And then there's also a large sticker on the back covering the rear LED, so we're going to pull that off as well. Now there is a tiny little sticker as well on the gimbal. You do not need to remove that sticker. It doesn't affect flight performance or the performance of the gimbal at all. So you can leave it in place if you want, or you can remove it. It's entirely up to you. I'm going to leave mine in place just because I've got no reason to remove it. Now, as mentioned, the Mavic is in transport mode, and that means that underneath we've got the gimbal cover and also what's called the gimbal lock in place, and we're going to remove those now. So as mentioned in part one of the video, the gimbal cover you can fly with it on. I was told by a DJI support technician never to fly with it, and I agree. There are a few reasons. First of all, this gimbal cover can become very loose. I mean, look how easy it comes off. If you're flying and there's a little bit of vibration, or you're flying in choppy weather and that comes off, it's going to fall to the ground. Not really going to injure anybody, but you don't want anything dropping out of the sky. So not only that, but also because of the way that the gimbal is reflective plastic, you're going to get a lot of glare from light and also reflections, so it's going to degrade the quality of your picture. Also, over time, scratches and various marks on this cover are going to also destroy your footage. So use it for transporting the Mavic as it's intended and for protecting this very delicate gimbal, but always remove it prior to flying. Just to show you again how that's removed as well, there's a little clip on the back. Push that forwards and it then pivots from the front. To refit it, just simply tuck the front in first and then click it down like that. So the next thing we're going to remove is what's called the gimbal lock. And this is basically just to stop the gimbal from moving excessively when you're transporting the Mavic. Removing it is very easy. Take your fingers either side of the clear plastic PCC here and then gently squeeze and pull up. And that will release the gimbal, which is now free to move and wobble around. Now, some might think that the gimbal is actually broken or damaged from the way that it just wobbles and hangs so freely, but that's by design. Now remember, if you pack your Mavic away without putting the gimbal lock back in place, you do risk damaging this very delicate component. So always put the gimbal lock back. Now, the way to do that is align the gimbal so it's facing forwards, and then take the clear bit of plastic again, and slide it down to the rear of that gimbal, and it will just lock in place like that. But we're not transporting the Mavic at the moment, we're setting it up, so we're going to remove ours, put it away to one side, and then turn the Mavic back on its front. In terms of preparing the Mavic for flight, we've now completed that step. Next, we're going to be charging up the batteries and the transmitter. So the various elements that require charging with the Mavic package are of course batteries and the transmitter. The transmitter has an inbuilt battery which needs charging in its own right. It's not removable. Interestingly, my transmitter arrived with 0% in the battery, and so it wouldn't even turn on. That's not particularly healthy for lithium polymer batteries. So the batteries will also arrive on a transport mode, which means you'll get just probably a single LED illuminating. My advice and best practice is always to fly on a battery that's fully charged. Don't take a risk and fly on a battery with only 1 or 2 lights illuminated. So we're going to start with charging the batteries. You're first going to need the transformer brick which came with the Mavic package, and you then need to plug that into your power supply like that. Now it's a very simple process actually. All you do is use the plug on the end of the power supply and plug that into one of the batteries like that. It can be plugged in anywhere around, it doesn't matter. Once plugged in, the LED on top of the battery will start flashing to show that it's charging, and as it gets through its charge cycle, the lights will illuminate one by one. It's going to take probably between half an hour to an hour to charge each battery. Now, one alternative method is to use the DJI charging hub. That comes with the Fly More combo, and it lets you charge 4 batteries in series. Now, that's an important note that it's in series. What that means is that they're not going to all charge at exactly the same time. It will charge one, and when that battery completes, it then charges the next. So it could take quite a long time to charge 4 batteries with this, but the benefit is that you can leave them charging and not have to keep an eye on them and switch the batteries when one finishes. So this kind of automates that job for you, and as you can see, it's very easy to use. So when all of your batteries reveal 4 LEDs when the button's pressed, you know that your batteries are all ready to go. So our Mavic is looking rather naked without its battery, so let's now fit our fully charged battery back into the Mavic. Always open the arms before fitting the battery, and then just gently slide it in, hold the base and push it to click it. That's it. Remember that this button is no longer for the charge status. You can press it once to see, but its real purpose now is to actually turn on the Mavic, and I'll show you how to do that shortly. So with the front arms unfolded, we're now going to also unfold the rear arms by pivoting them underneath, like that. And you'll notice that we have props on the back, but we don't have any props on the front. And of course, we're going to need those before we can fly. Now the Fly More package comes with loads of spare props, but if you don't have the Fly More package, no fear, because you will, in the box, have another 2 props to go on the front. The props are color coded. So you'll notice on this motor compared to this motor, we've got some little white circles on this, but no white circles on that. And that's to help you identify which prop fits on which motor. With the Mavic, you have 2 different types of props, so always note the colors before fitting the props. We're going to open our package here, and we're going to need 1 set of each. So I'm going to pull one of those out and also one of these. Now you'll notice with the props that I've just pulled out that you can see the color coding around the top of them. So this one has a little white circle, this one doesn't. And that helps me because I know that this one with the white circle fits onto the motors with the white circular elements. Fitting these props is very easy as well. Extend the props out. Remember the color coding, verify that again, and then simply place gently the prop on top of the motor, hold the body of the motor, press down and twist clockwise, and that then secures. You can check if you fitted the prop correctly because there'll be no sideways movement and it won't lift up. Fitting the other props is very similar. Instead of clockwise, however, it's anti-clockwise. So locate the prop gently on top, press down, turn the motor anti-clockwise, and then let go, and that will then lock in place. So very, very simple. So a bit of advice: if you've stored your Mavic with the props in place fitted and you're going to take it out and go for a flight, always before taking off, just check that each of those props is firmly fitted, because they can easily be dislodged when it's being transported. Now I know you're eager to get flying, but there are still a few more steps, and the next one involves getting your app ready. So fire up the Google Play Store if you're using Android. Of course for iOS it'll be a slightly different route. Whichever phone or device you're going to be using with your DJI, you need to go into the Play Store, and we're going to first of all search for the DJI app. Now, DJI have confused their apps a little bit with different renaming due to the different models they have. So when you search for DJI, you may find some odd results. The first result that comes up is for DJI-Go 4 for drones since P4. What a confusing name for an app. Now, we're using the Mavic, so that's going to be the app for us, but there is also another DJI app called DJI-Go for products before P4. So it's a very odd naming strategy by DJI there, but we need this first app up at the top. We're going to click Install. We're going to accept the permissions that it needs. Now, we at DroningON don't wear silver foil hats, and so we're not particularly bothered about privacy because we have nothing to hide. So we're going to accept all of those permissions and allow the app to install. Now, this is a big app, so I highly recommend downloading it over Wi-Fi. Don't use your data, because if you're on a limited data plan, it's going to take a 140 meg chunk out of it. We'll just wait for that to install, and then when completed, we can start firing up the rest. So there we go, the app has finished downloading, it's now installing, and that shouldn't take too long before we can open it up. Interestingly, gets an incredibly low score, this app, which is probably just from a few disgruntled users. The app has had problems in the past, and of course it does suffer from the occasional bugs in releases, but this is a really complicated piece of software with loads of functionality within it. And so of course, every now and then there are going to be the occasional bug. That has finally finished installing. It takes quite a while. So we're now going to click Open to open up that app. And we get this lovely presentation screen trying to sell us a DJI Spark, but no, we've got a Mavic. We don't need that one at the moment. Takes a while to boot up, but then once it starts, we're shown a terms of use, which we're not going to scroll through and read in detail. We're just going to agree to that, signing our lives away. And we now have to sign in with our DJI account. So you need to enter your credentials here. And if you don't have credentials here, press the sign up button top right to create them. But I'm going to sign in with my account here. And we're now logged in. Now we're shown various news flashes. This relates to Spark, so it doesn't actually relate to us. So we're going to ignore that. But it's quite nice that they do give you topical news stories when you log into the app. So we're going to now have a quick look through here. So what have we got? Scan QR code, Academy, offline maps, flight records, find my drone. So quite a lot of functionality within the app before we actually go into the flight interface. We're not going to go into that in detail now. We're just going to get this drone set up and connected initially. So we've now shown you how to install the app on your smart device. What we're going to do now is install it into the transmitter. It's now time to set up and charge the transmitter. Now, there are two elements here. First of all, charging the battery. The second is making sure that the cable is right for your phone. Now, I'm using a Samsung S8, and so the little USB port on the underside of my phone is a USB Type-C. But of course, not all phones use that type of connector, and so you might need to change this cable. In your Mavic package, you'll have received a few little alternative versions of this cable, and all you need to do is get the right one for your phone, unroute it from in here, change that cable out so that it suits your phone, and then you are ready to go. If anyone needs any more detail regarding how to do that, comment below and I will happily do a video to show you, but it's not complicated. The next step is to actually charge the battery of the transmitter, and we do that first by unplugging this. That gives us access to a little USB port in the corner of the transmitter. We then need to get our transformer brick again, and this is the same brick that we use to charge our main Mavic batteries. And we also then need to get the full USB cable that came in the package with the Mavic. On the front of the transformer brick, you'll see there are two USB ports. You could use one for charging your mobile phone, but you use the other for charging the transmitter. So plug one end of the USB cable into one of the ports there, and then plug the other end of that cable into the USB port on the side of the transmitter. Like that. Once you plug that in, it will show that it's charging. Now, I charged mine earlier up to 100%, but as I say, when my package first arrived, the battery was at 0% when I charged it. So if yours arrives and your transmitter doesn't turn on, don't worry, it's probably just because it's arrived with a flat battery. The transmitter takes about an hour to charge from flat, and you're going to get loads of battery life out of that, so no fear, you won't be charging this all the time. When it's finished, simply unplug it and then plug the cable gently back in. Now, USB ports do suffer from wear and tear occasionally, so do be very gentle with that port up there, because if that breaks, you're going to be in trouble. With the app now installed on our phone, we're going to set up the transmitter. So the first thing you want to do is open up the antenna. That's really important to make sure that you get full signal and communication with your drone. Once you've opened up the antennas, face them both like this in a way that they will then pivot upright. So essentially you end up with your transmitter looking like that. That's going to give you best all-around reception. Never fly with them like that, for example. That's just going to be catastrophic. So general rule of thumb, 45 degrees and facing parallel to each other like that. We're now going to install our phone into the phone holder elements down here. So first thing to do is fold them out. Now they kind of pivot in two different ways. They fold out, but then they also tilt like this. So the idea here is that they're flexible and they'll fit almost every phone on the market up to a certain size. So with the transmitter now unfolded like some weird transformer, take your smart device. Now I've got a gel surround on my phone here, which is the Samsung S8, and you might want to remove that to make sure that you get a good fitment into the transmitter here. The first thing we need to do is locate the phone into the small port, which is down here. Best way to do that is to put your finger on the outside of that port and then to locate your phone in towards it. And you've got to be very careful. This is a bit of a fiddly process. It will take a bit of getting used to, but you will master it in a very short amount of time. Once you've connected your phone in on one side, you can then pivot the phone into the other side and close these arms snugly around your device. Now it is quite a fiddly process, but you will get the hang of that in a very short amount of time. So our phone is now installed and connected to the transmitter. Just also to note that we do have some sticky elements on the transmitter as well. You can peel those off if you wish, or you can leave them in place to protect the screen. But this transmitter clearly is not going in the air, therefore any sticky elements are not going to be a big problem. I'm going to leave mine in place for now just to protect the transmitter. We can now turn on this device with it all set up. So you do that by pressing the power button in the top here, press it once and then press it immediately again and hold it, and you'll see that the transmitter now turns on. Now you'll also notice that at this point my smart device has also lit up, and it's prompting me to say, do you want me to open this device with DJI-Go? Which I do. It's automatically recognised that the transmitter is calling for that app. So I'm going to tick use by default and then click OK. So now that I've associated the two, the DJI app will automatically start up whenever I connect the transmitter to the phone, which is quite handy. And you can see we've now got the DJI app here. The app is telling us that the RC is connected, so that means the transmitter, and we can now press enter device to actually go into the DJI interface, and there it is. So in future, connecting up will be much easier and quicker, and the app will start up for us. Now with our phone attached to the transmitter, we're actually going to jump ahead straight to the calibration of the transmitter. This is important to do the very first time that you get your transmitter. They are calibrated from the factory, but you can't be doing it yourself just to be happy and to give you peace of mind. So from the app interface, press the little dots in the top right hand corner, and then you want to press the icon that looks like a little transmitter, like that. You'll then have an option that says remote controller calibration at the top. So press that option, and here you can see we're now guided through a calibration procedure. So the calibration routine on this DJI app is not very good, just to warn you, and it's a bit clunky. So the idea is basically that you are moving your control sticks around here, and you see the little icons on the screen which represent the calibration status of the sticks. At the moment they're fully centralized and they are calibrated from the factory, but I recommend doing it yourself just for peace of mind. So we'll press to start the calibration routine at the bottom here. We've got to center all the sticks and then press OK. And the idea now is basically that these little blue blobs here, you need to move your control sticks to where those little blobs are, and they then move. And as they move, you need to follow them around by moving the sticks. Now, sometimes they may not move, and so you have to kind of go back and then down again. But that seems to be working pretty well there. Sometimes it takes a little bit of fiddling to get it to actually work. There we go. And you can do one and then the other. You don't have to do both sticks at the same time. However, the calibration routine does have a timeout. And if it times out, you have to start again. So I recommend doing both at the same time. Very gently, just follow the little blue blob around until you've completed both of the control sticks. And then it will tell you that calibration is complete. So we're almost there now. Tiny little bit left, and there we go. So that's now done for the sticks. Now what we need to do is calibrate the dials. So this is the dial on the left at the moment, which is this one here. This is for tilting your gimbal. So we're going to do a similar kind of thing where we're going to rotate it around to follow the blobs, and that was nice and quick and easy. That's done already. And then that's it. So we've now calibrated our transmitter, and we can now move on to powering up the Mavic Pro. So that's now the transmitter calibrated. We're going to set this aside for 1 minute. We're going to leave everything exactly as it is. And we're now going to show you how to fire up the Mavic Pro. So powering on the Mavic Pro is very easy, but before we do so, I recommend doing these checks every single time. Check all your props are on securely, rotate the Mavic around, check that you've removed the gimbal lock and also the dome on the front of the Mavic, and then place the Mavic on its front like that. The power up procedure is so simple. The button that we use to check the battery status here, all you do is press it once and then press it again and hold it. The lights on the battery will count up to 4. The props will move and you'll get a kind of initiation sequence here. And of course that lovely Mavic startup sound. Your gimbal will also now start to stabilize. So if you have a closer look at the gimbal, you can see that as we move the drone around, the gimbal is compensating and stabilizing itself as well. So the drone is now fired up. We've got full power going to the drone. You'll also possibly hear the fans on there as well, which are keeping the insides nice and cool. And of course on the rear, we've got our lovely LED light. Now the LED light also gives you an idea of the status of the drone and whether it's acquired any satellites. So it will flash as it is now if it doesn't have any GPS acquisition. If we just bring our transmitter into sight as well now, the screen on the transmitter has updated. We've now got a terms of use screen, which we're not going to read everything here. We're going to scroll through it as most people probably do, tick the checkbox and then press agree. And we can now activate our new drone. It's reminding us here that you should remove the gimbal clamp before activating it. So I'm going to press next here to activate it. I've been asked to now name my aircraft and I think that's for the purpose of logging. So I'm just going to call it Ash Mavic Pro. And then continue. We've got our selection of the inputs here, so whether we're going to be flying mode 2 or mode 1, I'm going to leave it on mode 1 and press continue. We've got a guide of the LCD screen on the transmitter and what everything does. We don't need that. Finally, we can configure the 2 buttons on the underside of the transmitter here. They are customizable. You can set them here during the activation process, but we're not going to do that. We can set those later. So press continue and leave them as they are. Finally, you've got some of the settings, measurements, so metric or imperial. I'm going to leave it on metric at meters and seconds, and then PAL or NTSC. Now that's kind of irrelevant these days. It only really relates to colors and frame rate. I'm going to actually leave it on NTSC because generally you are offered higher frame rates with that format. Press continue. Now, beginner's mode is enabled as default, but I don't want beginner's mode, which basically stops you from flying 30 meters away from you. So I'm going to disable that. We can re-enable or disable that later, so don't worry about setting that now. Continue. We're shown our activation account that we're going to be activating this drone under. Press activate, and that then sends off our details to DJI, who of course are spying on us, but they're not really. And then finally, we're offered the opportunity to get DJI Refresh. We're going to skip that. We're not interested at the moment. Activation has been successful. So the next thing we need to do now is update the firmware. Now, of course, this is very important to make sure that you're flying with the latest software on the drone itself. We're going to do that later. We're not going to do that right now. And so we'll come back to that. So going back, we're now finally in the app, and you can see we've got our interface firing up and loading there, and it's all ready to go. So the main screen of the app is asking us if we want to update the firmware of our Mavic. Now, I don't mind updating firmware, I like to be running the latest, so I'm going to press on that, and we're then given details of what the update incorporates. At the bottom is a Start to Update button, which I'm going to press, and then click I agree. Now, when doing this, of course, you want your Mavic turned on, and you want the transmitter turned on as well. The firmware now starts to download, and when that's finished downloading, it will start installing. So finished downloading, it's now uploading the firmware to the actual drone, and then it will start installing it. Now, this process can take some time. Only ever do it with a fully charged Mavic battery, and basically don't interrupt it. So we're going to leave that going, and we'll come back to it shortly. After some time, the firmware update completes, the app goes back to its normal state, and you are then basically all fully updated. Also, the batteries on the Mavic itself have their own firmware. So if you've just updated your Mavic firmware, next time you change the battery and restart the drone, the app will prompt you to update the firmware on the new battery, let it do that, and then you can carry on and fly. You'll have to do that for each one of your spare batteries. So our Mavic, as probably as yours, is fresh out of the box and only just set up. So we are on the screen getting magnetic interference warnings, and that's most likely because we haven't yet calibrated the compass, and that is the next step. Calibrating the compass and also something called the IMU is very, very easy. It's recommended to calibrate the compass whenever you fly in a new location. So if we travel 100 miles away and we're in a new flying place, calibrate the compass, but I prefer to calibrate it every time I fly it. It only takes about 10 seconds and it's just worthwhile in my opinion, but it's up to you. So the way to do that is in the DJI-Go app. So to calibrate the compass, at the top where it gives you the drone status, where it says compass error, press on the screen there, and then you've got where it says calibrate compass at the top. Press calibrate. Ensure that the drone is not near anything metal, so don't have it on a metal table when you calibrate the drone, and it is best to do this outside really, but we're going to do this indoors for now. Press OK, and that starts the calibration. All we need to do now is rotate the drone 360 degrees whilst trying to keep the drone as flat as we possibly can. Don't do it too fast either until it says stop. And it's now telling us to face the drone nose down. So we're going to be holding it like that and basically rotating the drone again in a similar way around 360 degrees. Keep doing that until the app tells you to stop, and then it will tell you calibration is complete. That's the end of the calibration routine. As I say, it's so quick and easy to do. Why would you not do it every flight just for peace of mind? Now that's the compass calibrated. The other element is the IMU, which is a set of sensors. So to calibrate the IMU, you'll need to press the little dots at the top of the screen on the right hand side, and then make sure you are on the drone icon. And then you'll see where it says sensors state, press there, and then IMU calibration at the bottom in blue. Press that and you'll get the screen which warns you first of all to remove the props. Now removing the props is very simple. Press down and twist. Once you've removed all of the props, you can press start. Now through the course of IMU calibration, you'll be prompted by the app to move your drone around into certain positions, such as the position we've got the Mavic in now. So as you're moving it around in that position, the IMU sensors are calibrating to understand how the orientation of the drone affects its sensor readings. You can see now we're being prompted to put it on its back, on its front, on its side, etc. So pay close attention to the app and keep relocating the drone as the app tells you to. And once calibration is completed, you can set the drone back in its normal upright position, and in the app you can select to restart the aircraft. That basically makes sure that all of the new sensor readings are taken on board by the drone's firmware and allows it to reset properly. So we've now calibrated the compass and the IMU. As mentioned, the IMU doesn't need regular calibration. However, the compass is quick and easy to calibrate, and it's personal preference, but I recommend that you calibrate it before each day's flight. So if you're going to be flying 10 times in one day, just make sure you calibrate it the once before the first flight. So having pressed restart aircraft in the app, we're now going to power down the Mavic by pressing the button twice. You press it once quickly and then again and hold, and the Mavic will now turn off. We'll now power it back up by doing the same again, a single touch and then press and hold. And that will now allow the new IMU settings to be taken into account. The very final element of calibration isn't required all the time, only if when you're filming you notice that the horizon looks tilted. So this isn't a mandatory step, but if you've only just received your Mavic, it's something that you might as well do now. This is the gimbal calibration routine and it's accessed via the dots on the top right again. Once you've gone in there, go into the gimbal icon on the left hand side. And you'll notice at the bottom there is an option that says Auto Calibrate Gimbal. Press that option and the gimbal calibration will begin. Now it's going to look rather odd this, because on the live preview on the app you'll get your gimbal moving all over the place by itself, and you'll notice looking at the Mavic that it's rotating and twisting, but basically the gimbal is working out its extent and it's working out how to level itself. So allow it to complete. Do not move the drone or the surface on which the drone is sat during calibration, and when it's completed the app will tell you. Expect it to take about 1.5 minutes to complete, and as mentioned, you don't need to do this all the time, only every now and then if you notice that the horizon is slightly out. Once completed, the app will report that gimbal calibration is completed, press OK, and the Mavic resumes its normal operation. And if you now pick the Mavic up, you'll notice that the video is lovely and smooth. Even if you tilt the drone around, it looks lovely and smooth. So that's the completion of the 3 different calibration routines required for the Mavic. As mentioned, only the compass calibration is required often. The IMU calibration can wait until Mavic tells you that it needs it recalibrating, and the gimbal calibration can be done whenever you notice that the horizon is not level. In terms of the compass calibration, it is personal preference, but as mentioned, I recommend calibrating it at the beginning of each flight day. So if you're going to any location and you'll be flying 10 times, just calibrate it once before the first flight in that day. So you should now feel ready for your first flight, and our next video will actually take you through that process. So subscribe now so you don't miss it, comment below, give the video a thumbs up, and of course click share. Thanks very much for watching.